8.3.5's major role, Blizzard's WoW plan plus more. Okay. Okay.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the news. Today we've got a lot to talk about with Activision Blizzard having their earnings call.
True.
Very interesting developments on the PTR, ones that could suggest a lot for the game and quite a bit else. First though, we've got an announcement. Yes, we are making a new series, The Complete History of World of Warcraft. Each episode is going to tackle a patch, and we're starting off next week.
Fuck yes,
with
dude. Fuck yeah, dude. I cannot wait to watch that on YouTube for free content. Thank you, Belluor. Holy shit, man. That's gonna... Dude, I've got to subscribe to Belluor's Patreon. How many patrons does he have? Let me see. How much money does he give? Oh, 3,000. You know what? We probably should sub to Belluor's Patreon. And that way we'll get him to mail me the little fucking books and shit. You know what I mean? And, yeah, I mean, especially if we're already planning on leeching this entire new series. I mean, come on. Okay, just give me 1 second here. Bomber, thank you much for the $3. Appreciate that. I came back to WoW because of you, since I've got Memoron's Head and Horadon's Brood. Thanks, man. You breathed new life into the game. It's Spawn of Horadon, by the way, but it's okay. Thanks. You breathed new life into the game, but you stream your events. Sincerely, thanks. Spamasaur, thank you very much for the $3. I appreciate that, man. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Will you be playing on PvE or PvP Server Classic? Oh, we'll find out whenever the release comes out. Found your channel through recently through YouTube, and I love how real and yet hilarious you are. Thank you very much, Loafing Penguin. Thank you, thank you. Where did the name Asmongold came from? I invented it. I don't even know if I invented it. It was so long ago. Like, I don't know if somebody gave me the name or what. It was so long ago. I've had it ever since I was like 7 or 8 years old, and it was like a code name for whenever I do things in my backyard, like pretending to be like a commando or something. Let's get back to the video.
Patch. And from then, we're going to continue on. We're going to cover every patch in the game. And by the time this series is over, which will be quite some time because it's a pretty big series, we'll have charted the entire development history of World of Warcraft. Okay. Our focus is not only to bring you the information and to read things out, it's also to cover the experience of playing those patches. How they actually impacted players and to give you an insight into the game in the past. It's a big commitment, and it is one that is not possible on just AdSense money. We do also, on top of this, have another large series in the concept stage, and while we still have a position open on our second channel and we're going through applicants, we will soon have 2 more positions open on the Warcraft channel. Simply put, this type of stuff is not possible without sponsors. You will see more of those. I can guarantee it's products and services that I use, and I think it will become very clear that we're putting that all back into channel content. And of course, everything will be available ad-free to patrons. So our new series starts next week.
Wait, you skipped 6.1? What do you mean? What do you mean? How could you skip 6.1? That was the big content patch for you know, WoD. We got the selfie stick, we got Twitter integration, and didn't they bring out a store mount too? I mean, shit, dude. How could we lose track of that? Everyone's sipped. But yeah, I mean, obviously you're going to need to bring in more sponsors. Like, the thing with that is that anybody that complains about sponsors in videos is probably just a entitled 12-year-old. I mean, obviously at a certain point it does become annoying and deludes the content, but for the most part I think that it's fine.
With vanilla, and once that's running smoothly, we will begin the hiring process for our next big series. Overall, the goal is better quality content and more videos per week. Imagine Linus Tech Tips, but they're working in World of Warcraft. That's what we want to do. We want to bring you a lot of really fun, diverse content covering all of the WoW stuff, and I think you're really going to like it. Okay, let's get into the news, and we'll kick it off with some really juicy faction speculation on the PTR. 2 changes have happened, and both of them could be seen to be pointing towards a faction-fluid future. So, on the 8.2.5 PTR, the Stormwind and Orgrimmar embassies are actually a bit more empty, and where we once had super important faction characters, we now just have the Pandaren faction leaders plus some allied race people. So, Mekatork, Anduin, Sylvanas, that crew, they're all gone. And this makes quite a lot of sense when you think about it. The 2 Pandaren, they are the least likely to get dragged into the faction war. And while this does line up with the current lore of 8.2, where Mekatork is currently an ice cube, it also does make a lot of sense with what will probably happen in the 8.2.5 war campaign. Now, the war campaign's not on the PTR yet. Don't worry, there's no spoilers here. But given where things left off, it's pretty darn clear that it's going to hit the fan at Thunder Bluff. And that's going to tie down down most of the faction leaders, so it makes sense to move them out of the embassies.
Siege of
By
Thunderbluff,
them,
the new
Blizzard
raid.
not only make some room for the 8.2.5 story and make that make sense, they also clear the board for whatever happens in 8.3, allowing for major character deaths as well as changes of allegiance and things like that. You see, I think chances are 8.3.5 will actually be quite major, but before we get on to my big gigabrain take in 8.3.5, there's a very interesting UI element that's also been added to 8.2.5, one that fuels this speculation. So on the character selection screen, you now see faction icons. And this makes no sense in a world where the races are their faction, but it makes complete sense in a world where your character chooses its faction. Something that you've only been able to do in the past.
I don't like that. I'm gonna be honest. Somebody sent me the picture. I found the picture. Thank you, Spurgoid. I appreciate it. I'm not a fan of the orcs being alliance. I'm sorry, it's like so fundamental to the game that I don't know. I couldn't. I think if they want to go down that route, what they should do is they should make the new allied races be able to choose which faction they're going to be a part of the same way as Pandaren are able to. I don't like the idea of orcs being on the Alliance and night elves being on the Horde. I think it's ridiculous.
With the Mists of Pandaria, Pandaren, and remember who is left at the faction embassies? Oh, it's the two Pandaren characters.
Yeah.
And hell, the two of them get along very well indeed. I mean, to the point where it doesn't make that much sense those two characters being split across the factions. But anyway, point is, they would be the ideal characters for such a system. So we've got curious in-game changes as well as a new UI element that's not really needed for the current structure of the game, but would make a lot of sense for a version of the game where your character can choose its faction. Now here's the Gigabrain take. Patch 8.2.5 is going to be massive for the lore. Same goes for 8.3. Well, in Legion, patch 7.3.5 was the epilogue patch. It brought in those epilogue cinematics. It established where our two factions were after the Legion invasion, setting up Battle for Azeroth. So it stands to reason that Battle for Azeroth patch 8.3.5 will be the epilogue patch. And looking at the current lore, I think we can be pretty certain that Saurfang and Thrall's rebels will be leading the Horde, and that Sylvanas will be deposed. Now, given the heavy cooperation between the Alliance and the Horde rebels thus far, it stands to reason that the factions will not be at war. Now, sure, gameplay-wise, we'll have PvP, we will have war mode, but narratively, I think they'll just be the two main political bodies on Azeroth. In that world, players being able to change faction makes sense. It would be a very different world to, say, how World of Warcraft started off, but it could make sense for the modern game, especially in the context of party sync. You see, if 9.0 is going to be doing a level squish and 8.2.5 is going to be doing the party sync and a revamped Recruit a Friend, it would stand to reason that 8.3.5 would allow the cross-faction play. After all, it was Legion 7.3.5 that added in the leveling revamp, so those 3.5 patches can do a lot. Now, there is one
the hell is this?
The difference between cross-faction play and changing faction. Now, being realistic here, do Blizzard want to give up the revenue that they make from the absurdly expensive faction swaps? Probably not. I would imagine they'd rather have that money.
There's an airplane and it was moving around and it was loud. So I was like, what the fuck is that? Turns out it was an airplane. It's actually it's Alex Jones's black helicopters to come and pick me up and take me away and take me over to the Illuminati re-education facility that's in the center of the earth with the other reptilian overlords like Hillary Clinton, because I dared to question Jeffrey Epstein's suicide. That's actually why what that sound is, guys. So please make sure to follow, and I'll give you updates as soon as I know.
So indeed, I wonder if we will see some restrictions, but that fundamentally you'd be able to play with your friends regardless of their faction. Maybe
I don't like
the
that.
PvP mercenary mode thing.
Not a fan.
This would make sense in a world where WoW is doing a big apology expansion like with Legion that has a big focus on getting new players in and having people play together, which again, we've seen nods to already with 8.2.5's new features. Perhaps Blizzard are actually happy to just increase player count at the cost of decreased faction swap revenue, or perhaps Blizzard are just happy to retire the faction swap source of income and just to let people swap factions freely at an NPC, though probably with a significant cooldown time. Anyway, things seem to be pointing in that direction, so what do you...
I don't know, guys. I mean, like, if they actually are gonna do this and they're gonna bring out a whole new fucking thing where you have to choose your faction, like, I don't know. If they had, like, a mercenary mode where you could play as Alliance or Horde, it's just been, like, such a fundamental part of the game that it's like, at what point do you stop playing World of Warcraft? I think for some people, that point was whenever they allowed you to, you know, like, do a lot of other cross-realm zones and cross-realm things and then sharding. A lot of people were like, oh, this isn't WoW anymore. I'm not going to play it. I mean, at what point is this too much? And I don't know, man. It's just... I get that it's good for the game in a way, but what game is it good for? Is it WoW? It's hard to say. It's a really, really hard way for me. Like, I don't know. It's... Like, the pragmatic part of my mind wants to say, yeah, do it. But the more idealist, you know, like, guy that's played the game for 10 years, 15 years, however long it's been, you know, with Alliance and Horde struggles, like, that guy is not really as big of a fan. Factions are tiered content? I don't know. It's just hard for me to say.
You think? I would love to hear your take, just whether this is good for the game, if you think it would get you playing with your friends and remove some barriers. I'd love to know. Next, though, we've got the 15th anniversary mounts. They are on the store, and this has led to the usual store mount kickback, with Blizzard's announcement video being heavily dislike bombed and then just getting a lot of flack over social media.
Okay.
And that all makes...
Okay, you know what? Give me a minute. Give me a minute. We're gonna do this. Let me pull out old Twitter here. And we're going to settle this situation right here. Tweet. Where is it? Let me go ahead and open this up. View. Actually, let me just turn this off before I do it. I don't know what this is going to be. Okay. View. Large icons. Okay. Where the hell is it? Sort by date. Okay. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. All right. Perfect. I've got the picture. There it is, right there. Alabaster Griffin. Okay. All right, this is perfect.
Bro, at this point, don't even write it.
Yeah?
Don't even write it.
Look, I'm not good at spelling. I'm not good at spelling.
You can't, dude. You can't make fun of other people doing stupid shit if you can barely spell the words in your own tweet, man. That's.
Well, I can right-click on the red squigglies. That's no problem for me. At least I'm not wasting $25 on something that I don't even own. Yeah, I don't care. I'm tweeting it out anyway. Who gives a fuck? You can want to tell, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm going to waste my fucking money, and then I'm going to feel stupid because I didn't spell a word right the first time. Yeah, sure. At least I didn't waste my fucking money. Don't forget the dot. Okay, there we go. Perfect. All right, we've got it. Just a second. Let me go back and we'll do the rest of this. Incoming LFG ban? Hey, you never know.
Since it has all happened before, it will all happen again. And what I want to do today is to talk about the business model, because this entire business model is predicated on a small percentage of players partaking, though I do believe that WoW actually converts pretty darn highly for things like this. Now, what I want to do today is just to run you through some napkin maths behind this. And I think this is interesting. I think you'll learn a few things. So, for a typical store mount, we're dealing with a new rig and animation kit. That is pretty expensive to make, actually. It's hard to estimate exactly, but we'll kind of inflate numbers to prove a point. So, let's just say it takes 2 riggers 3 months to make the rig. That's 6 months of time. Then it takes 2 animators 2 months to give it its animation kit. That's another 4 months of time, so we're at 10 months. Now, to be clear, it's probably way faster than that. but again, we're inflating it to make a point. Then maybe it takes a modeler and an artist just like a month to get all of that going. So overall, about a year. Now, wages won't be the same for all those roles, but let's just average them at like 70k a year US, but then the cost of employment's probably
This is
more
Blizzard
like
we're talking
110K,
about, so it's probably substantially less than that. But, you know, we'll let this keep going.
120k. So between your 2 riggers for those months, your 2 animators, your modeler, and your artist, let's just say it takes a year of basically a year of man hours to get it done. Now, sure, that's pulled out of my ass, but still, that would come to a cost of about 100 grand. Now, if you were to say that a store mount was to cost anywhere from 50k to 250k to make, it would still be extremely profitable. Now, how do we work that out? Well, by getting the conversion rate. So 10.7% of level 120 players own the Luminous Starseeker mount. Now, by this stage, players who are just, you know, who have a 120, they encompass most.
Wait, what the fuck? Really? What the fuck? 10% of players? There's no... Dude, really? Like... We should just go through and ban every 10th player. Like, I guess that must be it, man. Holy fuck, that's a lot. Yeah, I know. 10% of WoW players are retarded. I can't even believe it, man. It's fucking ridiculous. Jesus Christ. Like, 10% of players see that and they want to buy it? Like, that's terrifying.
Of WoW, so it seems like a decent number. Now, if WoW was to have 5 million active subscribers, then at a 10% conversion rate over time, that's 500k sales, or like $12.5 million. Even if the store mount miraculously costs 350 grand to make, you can see how absurdly profitable it is. This is profitability in the multiple hundreds of percent, maybe 1,000% or more, probably far more than 1,000% profitability. Now, as much as those numbers might make us a bit depressed and sad, ultimately that's what it's going to be like for Blizz. It's like, we spend all this time making an expansion, we charge $60 in a sub fee, or we just have a few people throw them out together and, $25. So you kind of see what the numbers are like there. And the whole point of me saying this is that even if 90% of players deeply hate the store mounts, it's still going to be a winning financial strategy for Blizzard. That's basically the reality we're dealing with. Now, personally, I understand why they do it for business reasons, but the downside here is that it makes the game's fiscal performance be less tied to the experience of the average player. And interestingly, it does incentivize Blizzard to focus on cosmetic features for World of Warcraft, like transmog, customization, and maybe things like player housing. As those are game features that will better target the cosmetics-driven segment of the player base, and that's a segment of the player base who will convert at a higher rate than the gameplay-focused people. And it's an awkward position to be in, especially because I think that those cosmetic customizations, that like player housing, better transmog, I think they'd be excellent for the quality of the game. I really do advocate for those features, though I can't deny that this angle also does exist. Now, of course, I do dislike the store mounts in a
Everybody hates them. Right? I mean, basically everybody hates them. The thing with it is that you have these diehard fans of the game that, as I said, Blizzard can shit in their mouth and they'll give Blizzard $25. And it's sad, but I don't know if this is ever going to fucking stop. And that's why I've always thought, you know, spitting on the people that buy the mounts, creating a negative social outcome for people that do it, will be discouraging for people to buy the mounts in the future, hopefully leading Blizzard to not make as many of them because not as many people buy them. I don't know. That's kind of, it's unlikely that'll happen, but it's the only thing that I can do. It is the only thing. And I've made videos, I've complained about it, and Blizzard does not seem to care. So it's the only thing that I can fucking do.
Subscription fee game. The topic comes up so often, though, that rather than repeat the same segment every time that it happens, I'd rather take these opportunities to do something interesting, such as talk through the business angle of things. At least that way, I think that segments like these do provide an educational value, and, you know, that people actually will come away from listening to this segment knowing a little bit more about how this side of the business works. Now, there's another interesting angle here. It's that of Final Fantasy XIV. People are always singing that game's praises, and for good reason. Apparently, the new expansion is pretty much just
this is the same thing, right? It's like as soon as a new MMO comes out, it's like all the people that hate WoW just go play that new MMO, and they don't even care about how really good it is. They just care that it's not WoW. I don't know if this game is good or not, but it's like it's probably got a worse store than WoW does. I mean, most other MMOs do. I mean, I feel like the people that it's like, I don't know which ones are more irrational. The ones that won't allow any criticism of WoW to, like affect them, or, they just refute any criticism of WoW, or the people that hate WoW just irrationally. It's like both of the sides are just so fucking stupid. It's crazy.
Incredible. But it's also true that since the beginning, that game has had a far more aggressive cash shop than World of Warcraft. You've got your mount skins, you've got your premium retainer subscription that costs more money, and far, far more. It also is pretty good at its cosmetics, like its player housing and stuff. Now, interestingly, I hear that Final Fantasy is getting more pushback for its cash shop now because a lot of WoW players have moved over to that game. But fundamentally, to me, it seems like the Final Fantasy developers have done a really good job of just providing their players with heaps of quality content, that they're generally just more forgiving of that sort of thing. I mean, people are saying that Final Fantasy XIV as a single player game is like one of the best Final Fantasies, and that's pretty incredible for an MMO to achieve. So overall, it just seems like people maybe see the mounts, feel a bit off about them, but end up feeling that the value proposition makes sense because the game is just that good. So it's an interesting situation, and it's one that ties directly into Blizz's recent earnings call.
I think that's true. I mean, like, the better the game is, the less people are going to be mad about the store mounts. It's definitely true, right? Whenever the fucking Silverian mount came out, less people gave a shit about that one than whenever... Remember they brought out that one mount in WoD. What was it called? The one mount right after... It was like the cat or something like that, and they had it flying in WoD. And this is whenever there was no flying allowed in WoD either. And they just... the Rune Saber. And they brought that mount out, and the entire community went fucking berserk. Nowadays, it's basically just me getting mad on my stream. But, it's unfortunate that there's not more people that are saying it. It's so fucking sad. It is so fucking sad.
Which, conveniently enough, is our next segment. So the World of Warcraft segment of the earnings call was quite interesting. As an organization, Blizzard is focusing on getting more content out there, and J. Allen Brack just talked about doing better with in-between expansion patches and doing more of them in better quality. This is likely a bit of a nod to the production troubles of Battle for Azeroth and how 8.1 and 8.2 were significantly delayed as compared to the Legion cycle, but it's also fair to point out that Legion did slow down towards its end. Anyway, I do wonder if they seek to slip another patch or two into the standard 2-year lifetime of an expansion. Now, Blizzard President J. Allen Brack had this to say. The recent update, Rise of Ashara, is a good representation of how we think about large updates for the game. While Classic is also a part of our effort to increase available content, players have shown a lot of support for both Classic and Rise of Ashara. And yeah, from what I hear, Rise of Ashara has went down pretty darn well in terms of its
people generally like
Blizzard.
it. Yeah.
Blizzard's overall goal across the organization, though, has been to increase their pace of production across their IPs, so it stands to reason that that does apply to WoW as well. Now, in regards to Classic, they basically talked about how they do see it as a part of World of Warcraft, a part of that subscription, rather than its own distinct product, and they think it is a substantial content addition to WoW. And
they're basically calling it a value add. It's like, oh, if you have this game, if you have a WoW sub, now you can play Classic WoW too. I think that's fucking great. I'm very happy about that. It's amazing.
They're focused basically on awareness for Classic. Seemingly they know that there's well over 100 million people who have played World of Warcraft at one point or another, and the best thing they can do is just get Classic awareness out to that large number of people, which does make a lot of sense. So overall, I would expect WoW to focus on getting back to a Legion-like content cadence, maybe slipping in an extra patch if they can at the end to prevent a content drought. I would expect major patches and expansions to release alongside the 6-month mount promotions. That is what we've seen thus far. It makes sense
that seems to be the case.
And
I think that they're probably doing this. They're adding new store mounts every patch now in order to make it look like WoW is making more money than it actually is making. And the problem that has is the same fucking problem that Bellior is talking about, is whenever you have that shit happen, then Blizzard is going to look at the amount of money they make with store mounts, and there's not going to be that strong of a correlation between making good content and making a lot of money, because they make money no matter what, because they can print money with store mounts. And it's really fucking disgusting, but it's capitalism, I guess.
It goes back to what we were talking about in the previous segment. Whether we like it or not, these are things that generate a lot of money from a small proportion of the player base.
Dark, thanks for
All
5.
Blizzard really has to do is keep that small segment of the player base happy for those things to still make sense. And then as long as the other like 90% of players who are not involved in this don't unsub over it, it's going to end up working out mathematically in Blizzard's favor quite substantially, and that's basically just the reality that we're dealing with. Anyway, next up, let's talk about something a bit more light and fun. So the B faction is now on the PTR, and they're a bit more old school. It's actually pretty good in my view. It reminds me a bit of Scatus from TBC. Basically, in that it's just not your traditional, like, Legion BFA era reputation. So after a short intro quest line, you're just free to grind the rep out. This is done by finding jelly deposits around Stormsong Valley. Those deposits contain thin jelly. That's your main currency, as well as some other things. Now, that jelly can be fed to the nascent harvester in order to get reputation, or you can purchase items from the faction vendor. That includes a flight whistle-like item that takes you back to the B faction hub, goggles that track jelly in the minimap, and even a glyph that makes your dire beast summon bees, which is pretty cool indeed. So
not for the person
sure,
you're
it's not
summoning
going to
it
be
on
for everyone in its grindy nature, but it's good to see more reputation diversity. I think we can all agree that the standard, like, World Quest era reputations were getting really boring. So
they fucking suck dick. They're not getting boring, they suck fucking dick. Let's just be honest here. You know what? Let's see, how are we gonna get, what reputations do we have now? Okay, 7th Legion, Champions of Azeroth, Order of Embers. Do you know what all of these reputations are? They're world quest trackers. They're fucking boring. That's all they are. They're world quest trackers. They're forgettable? Well, they're worse than that, because at least they're not forgettable, because they give me PTSD every time I remember that I had to farm out Champions of Azeroth reputation whenever the game came out to farm out a shitty fucking helmet. No, they're worse than forgettable. Like, the Legion ones were basically forgettable. Who gives a fuck about those? But these now are just, I hate these fucking reps, man. Like, they need to do a better job with reps. Like, in Legion, I thought that they were turning things around whenever they started doing, maybe Army of the Light was a little bit better, but it kind of still sucked. But you had, like, the, Talon's Vengeance reputation. That was awesome. And then all of the rest of these reps were all world quest trackers. It's crazy how bad they are. Like, all the old reps were awesome. Like, the Ogrilla, the Netherwing, and it's like, after, like, Wrath, whenever they introduced the whole thing with tabards, and, you just go and you farm out the rep with the tabard, it was so fucking boring. And at least in Mists of Pandaria, they had a few reps that weren't that bad. Like, yeah, it's so disappointing.
The more of this, the merrier. Then finally, a quick update on World of Warcraft Classic. So, name claiming starts on the 12th of August, and the pre-launch test has been extended over the weekend. We have also received server lists from the US and the EU, and Blizzard have released a primer for new players. Things clearly are ramping up, and I think most of all, looking at the number of servers, I'm interested to see what the player counts will be. No doubt the servers can support far more people than they did in 2004.
I would hope so.
I've got to wonder, like, how will that impact things like social dynamics and spawn rates?
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see, like, what those populations end up settling at after the initial launch period, and once the the layering disappears, and just how Blizzard proceed past the planned content phases. I think you've all heard I've long been an advocate for Classic Plus. I would like there to be a phase like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just keep on developing new content for the game in that more old school sandboxy manner. Though if they were to do that, I think they should do it on a new set of servers, like a new set of servers that you can, like, transfer your character over to, so that it is an opt-in experience. Certainly that is something that's worked out super well for Jagex with RuneScape.
I big agree with that.
Old school RuneScape. So I have to wonder, is that a success that Blizzard could repeat? But anyway, that's it for today's episode of the news. Of course, it is Paladin month over on Patreon, so there's that going on. Plus, it's
Soundless Day right up for me, because I'm about to get the fucking mount.
Hopefully a week or two. We're actually still doing
the
just
in time.
The plan is to have another goodie as well.
Watch this.
So that's what's going on there. And yeah, our new
Watch the
series
Mount
starts
God
next week. Super excited to get into it. We have a little bit of a new look and feel for it, and yeah, it should be a really fun commitment. We've had a lot of fun writing the first episode or two, and just that journey I think will be really fun. And I kind of look forward to the end of that series as well, when I can look back at the channel and I can just look at a playlist that says the history of World of Warcraft, and there you go, every single patch. And we'll probably loop back around and do like a specials on the original World of Warcraft beta. So yeah, anyway, that's it for us today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Of course, yesterday we had a big juicy lore video on Rathian, which I think goes to really cool places. Anyway, cheers everyone. I will see you next time.
Okay. So let's talk about this situation here, alright? Shall we? Number 1. Mountless? Come on, dude.